There are moments that redefine an entire life. For most, they arrive with the slam of a door or the echo of a scream in an empty room. Not for me. For me, life changed with the nearly silent sound of a pen gliding across paper and the dense, heavy silence that followed. In that silence, the woman who loved him dissolved, and another, one who was learning her own value, began to take form. It all started with a request. A 3-word sentence he used like a scalpel, trying to make a clean, painless incision. But he didn't know who he was dealing with. He didn't know I wasn't going to bleed. I was going to Bill. When he opened that letterhead envelope, the color drained from his face. I saw confusion dance in his eyes, then disbelief, and finally, the spark of panic. It was the first time in a long while I'd seen him look like anything other than bored. After 5 years of supporting his dream inside my apartment, the apartment my grandfather left me, he had the audacity to tell me, with the calmness of a monk, that he needed space. He wanted space. So I gave him all the space he could ask for, 300 square feet, for $2,000 a month, on an official, legally binding contract drafted by my lawyer. If you love stories where justice arrives in the most unexpected way, like this video and subscribe, because this is just getting started. But the part he least expected, the part that truly sealed his fate, wasn't in the clauses of the contract. It was in what I discovered shortly after, and where, exactly, I made sure to send the first invoice. Justice, after all, loves registered mail. Our story lasted exactly 5 years. Or rather, 1,825 days. I say that because I was the only one counting, the only one marking the dates, the only one building. I had a career, a plan, a discipline that turned my salary into security, into a foundation. He had potential. That's what everyone said, and it was the one thing he sold better than anything else. He was an artist, a dreamer, a free spirit who couldn't be contained by mundane things like electricity bills or rent. And I, at the height of my naivety, believed my love could be the foundation upon which he would build his empire. So, I shouldered the burden, financially, emotionally, in every way. He always said, with that charming smile that used to melt me and now makes me nauseous, that one day it would all be paid back. The universe, according to him, would return the favor twofold. The universe never returned a thing, but my grandfather did. Before he passed, he sat me down in his old kitchen, held my hands in his worn from a lifetime of work, and gave me a check. A check for an amount that represented every hour of overtime, every sacrificed weekend. He said, "This is so you have your security, your place in the world. A roof that is yours, where no one can tell you when to come or go. It is your fortress." I cried as I read that dedication from his will to him, the day we signed the deed to my apartment. He held me, cupped my face in his hands, and swore to care for that gift as if it were sacred. He was desecrating a sacred place, and he had no idea the magnitude of his sin. The first sign, so subtle I almost convinced myself it was paranoia, was when he started complaining about the energy of the place. He said he needed mental space to create. He began locking himself in the second bedroom, which I had turned into his studio, for hours on end. I, like an idiot, thought it was the creative process. It was a fatal mistake. A mistake that would cost me my peace, but would give me back my power. His creative process started to get stranger and stranger. First came the nights of inspiration. He'd leave the studio in the middle of the night, saying he needed to walk to clear his head. He'd return as the sun was rising, smelling different like the city air and something that wasn't my perfume. Then, the small charges started appearing on my credit card, the one he had for emergencies. Coffees, lunches, Uber rides. The destinations were always the same, addresses near a university on the other side of town, a place where he didn't know anyone, didn't take classes, had no reason to be. It became more and more obvious, and I became more and more convinced I was imagining things. The final piece of the puzzle was a bottle of cologne, an expensive, woody fragrance that appeared on the bathroom shelf. When I asked, he said it was a gift from a friend, but he never wore it. The bottle just sat there untouched, like a small glass monument to a lie I didn't yet understand. Right here, in the middle of the storm, is when you decide whether to sink or learn how to navigate. If you believe in the power of taking back control, make sure you're subscribed to see how this journey ends. The discovery didn't come from a stray text message or a suspicious phone call. It came with calculated calm. On a Tuesday night, he sat on the sofa, the same sofa I had picked out and paid for in 10 easy installments. He waited for a commercial break in the show we were watching, and then, without looking me in the eyes, he dropped the bomb. "I think I need space," he said. "To think, you know?" His voice was a murmur, devoid of any emotion. There was no pain, no hesitation. There was only a request for leave, as if he were asking to be excused from the dinner table. My heart didn't race. It froze. In that exact second, the warmth I felt for that man evaporated, and what was left was an icy, wintry clarity. I didn't feel the urge to cry. I felt the urge to act. Something inside me switched off, like an emergency breaker. The woman who loved him left the room, and the owner of the property took control. I looked at him, forced the kindest smile I could manage, and said, "Of course, my love, I completely understand." He smiled back, relieved. He had no idea who he was sleeping with. He had no idea what was about to happen. Over the next 24 hours, I moved with a surgeon's precision. While he enjoyed his newly declared space, whistling around the house, I was building his cage. The first call was to my cousin, Helena, a brilliant lawyer with the heart of a lion and zero tolerance for a mediocre man. I explained the situation in under 5 minutes. There was a silence on the line, and then her laugh, low and delicious. "A contract," she said. "It's poetic and perfectly legal. Send me his details." Next, I dove into the internet. I researched the average market rent for a furnished room in my neighborhood. I wrote down the number, $2,000, and felt a pang of satisfaction. It was a fair price. A market price. A price I knew he could never afford to pay. I spent the night drafting the document with Helena's help. Temporary lease agreement. 30-day notice clause. Penalty for damages to the property. Every word was a brick in the wall I was building between my future and his past. I printed 2 copies on high-quality paper and placed them in a plain envelope with her law firm's letterhead. He slept soundly in our room. I plotted silently in the living room. The delivery was a work of art. The next evening, I found him exactly where I expected, sprawled on the couch, video game controller in hand, feet up on my coffee table. The very personification of the space he so desperately craved. I walked over to him, envelope in hand. My heart was beating steadily, not with fear, but with adrenaline. "Honey," I said, in the sweetest voice I could muster, "about the space you need. I prepared this to make things official, so you have some security." He took the envelope, a confused smile on his face. "What is this?" he asked, tearing it open carelessly. I watched every micro-expression on his face as he read. First, the furrowed brow. Then, the widening eyes. The mouth opening and closing, like a fish out of water. He read and reread the header. Lease agreement. He saw the names. Landlord. My name. Tenant. His name. And then he saw the price. $2,000. The controller fell from his hand, making a hollow thud on the rug. The silence stretched for 10 long seconds. "Is this a joke?" he finally managed to say, his voice a thread. I sat down in the armchair across from him, crossed my legs, and replied, with the calm of someone who has just won a chess match. "No, it's a contract. You wanted space, so I'm treating you like a tenant. You have 30 days to sign or to vacate the premises." As per the law, his meltdown was predictable. He shot up, his face red with rage. He yelled that I was crazy, that he didn't have that kind of money. I calmly suggested that perhaps he should start turning his potential into something profitable. He tried to play the emotional blackmail card, talking about our history, our dreams. I cut him off. "Our history ended the second you asked for space," I said, my voice as sharp as glass. "This is now a business transaction. And you, my dear, are bad investment." He paced back and forth, gesturing, threatening, pleading, and I just sat there unshakable. For the first time, I saw the man behind the dreamy artist, a spoiled boy, used to getting everything he wanted without paying the price. He realized his old tricks no longer worked. The charm, the smooth talk, the empty promises, they all bounced off my newfound armor. He had no legal power, no moral high ground, and most importantly, no financial leverage. He was cornered by his own mediocrity. But I wasn't finished. Revenge is a dish best served cold, but mine came with a bitter dessert. I had saved the best for last. In the days that followed, while he sulked around the apartment like a ghost, I became a detective. I took those small charges from my credit card, the coffees, the lunches near the university. I searched for the names of the cafes on social media. And there it was. The profile of a design student, 20 years younger, with a feed full of artistic photos. In one of them, taken in her bedroom, I saw it on the shelf behind her, the bottle of woody cologne. In the reflection of her sunglasses in another photo, I saw the distorted image of his face. The need for space had a name, a college major, and apparently a weakness for fixer-upper man. On the 29th day of his notice period, he came to me, defeated, for one last attempt. "We need to talk," he began. I stopped him. "No, we don't." I walked to my purse and pulled out a small envelope. "I know why you need space," I said, holding it out to him. "And to help you out, since I know things are tough, I've already sent the first invoice. Don't worry, I didn't send it here." He looked at me confused. I smiled. "I sent it directly to her address. I just assumed you'd want to centralize all your expenses in your new creative space." The comprehension, and then the horror, washed over his face. It was the most satisfying sight I have ever witnessed. He didn't say a word. He just picked up the suitcase that was already packed in the corner and walked out. I closed the door behind him, and for the first time in a long time, I breathed the clean air of my own home. My sanctuary. Today, a year later, the silence here is no longer heavy. It's peaceful. The second bedroom is no longer a studio of empty promises. It's my office, where I build my own empire, brick by brick. As for him, I heard he vanished from social media after the young student discovered he wasn't a misunderstood artist, but just a man with nowhere to live. She put him on blast in a university group chat. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who knew how to write an eviction notice. The lesson that stuck, burned into my soul, is simple and powerful. When a man asks you for space, give it to him. Give him all the space he wants. But first, check the going rate per square foot in your area. And always, always send an invoice. If you've ever felt like a long-term investment with a very low return, if you've ever placed your bets on someone who was only bluffing, you understand the need to one day cut your losses and cash out. Comment invoice sent below if you believe self-respect is non-negotiable. Like this video if you've ever had to turn a major disappointment into a smart business decision. And subscribe for more stories about turning the tables and taking back what's rightfully yours. Because at the end of the day, the strongest fortress is the one we build for ourselves.